Hi, Jennifer. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. I love your show. I love you. I follow you so much, and I'm gaining inspiration, I think, from my own caregiving journey from what you're going through. So thank you for
Thank you.
inviting me today.
Likewise. I mean, I learned so much from all the different folks that I talk to, and caregiving is messy and we're just trying to kind of connect the dots and make sense out of it all. And I'm learning every day and learning from y'all. So thank you for having this time with me. We start the show, Jennifer, with picking some stuff from the what I call the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar. It's just different things I've collected over the years that have resonated for me and maybe will resonate with other caregivers if they're looking for like a little bit of like a daily inspiration. I made it for my sister who, when we transferred care from my mom to her, I just felt like, what can I make her? This is such a crappy situation to give somebody like a full-time care thing. So that's where it stemmed from. But now people can make their own jar if they would like. So yours for the show today says, believe you can, and you are halfway there. What do you think
Oh,
about that when terms of caregiving and self-care and all of those things?
I think in terms of life, yes. So believe you can. I would even take it a step further because
Do
I
it.
do a lot of meditation as well, which is you see what you want and then you believe that you can and you believe that you are, and then you feel the feeling that you have when you predict that you are going to be that. And so your body is really loving to do familiar things. So if it already feels like it is that thing, it will find opportunities to express itself like that, and you will be that. So you will become it.
I love
It's not
that.
even fake it, it's like become it?
Yes, positive thinking, setting aside the worry, having a mindset that's more productive, I think is something that is really challenging when we're in the throes of caregiving, but it's essential, really. It's a healthy mindset to have. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I was thinking before our conversation, and I know you're not in Switzerland right now, and we'll talk about that, but you live in Switzerland. I don't know that I've had an international resident on the show yet. Um, but tell us a little bit about like why are you in Switzerland? Where are you now? How did caregiving happen to you in your life? Like, we just want to get to know you
Sure.
for a couple, this
Sure.
early part of the show here, Jennifer.
Sure. So I am American. I'm originally from Oregon, and I'm currently in Oregon, as you can tell with this sort of Wild West looking background. It's not a fake background. It's actually a real thing. It's a real house.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and I've lived in Switzerland for 13 years, and truthfully, I've lived outside the United States for 25 years.
Wow.
Crazy. And I think the best way to describe it is I'm someone who's always chased adventure and purpose to want to do something to impact people's lives and, let's say, very much related to me, change healthcare systems and impact healthcare systems. So I have had a career in where I worked for WHO and the World Bank, and I've been an executive in the pharma industry for 20 years. And those roles that I had professionally, vocationally, took me to those different places. So Switzerland
Amazing.
is the headquarters of some of the drugs that we are so grateful that we have, because they're, the leading breast cancer drugs, the leading
Mm,
cancer drugs are all coming from Basel, Switzerland, where I'm coming from, and a lot of the companies I've worked for. So that's why I'm usually living there. I'm currently here in Oregon because I am in a caregiving moment, hands-on caregiving moment. So yeah, so I think, yeah, just about me, like I just have really, really valued healthcare, helping, and also I think that this tradition of caregiving has been really running deeply with me
mm-hmm.
personally, because even as a child, I was a caregiver to my grandmother, who was my best friend,
Aw,
and she lived with. And so as a teenager, I was having to do, her daily blood glucose monitoring and titrating her insulin and giving her injections, and being that person who was watching her when I got home from school. I would relieve the in-home caregiver. So and I think she lived with us for 2.5 years
wow.
during that time.
I mean,
That left a
young
pretty
caregiving
significant
is
imprint.
tough. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. It really is. Because I think there's certain things you can't do. And you just have to be a part of the caregiving journey. I was watching my own daughter as we were caregiving for my father here, and I really felt for her. And I was actually so grateful that I could pass on that experience
Mm.
where she was able to be hands on with this. My 14-year-old daughter, sort of looking at an echo of myself from my own past, where I was actually actively taking care of my grandmother at that age. And then there she is taking care of her own grandfather.
Wow. Would you consider yourself, Jennifer, then like a sandwich generation
Did we
caregiver?
freeze? No.
Would you consider yourself a sandwich generation caregiver?
100%. I am a sandwich generation caregiver. We talk to people who are like club sandwich caregivers. So maybe you've got grandchildren already, great grandchildren, and you've got, parents, you've got grandchildren, and you have your own children, and you're caring for all those generations. But for sure, I am a sandwich generation person, caregiver, so that I have it on both sides.
Yeah.
And I'm really in the squeeze of it very much on both sides where there's the aging relatives, so it could be my own direct parents or father, or it could be other aging relatives that I have or we have in our world that we're caring for. And also, we're mothers. I'm a mother, and my own child has really struggled with mental health challenges.
Mhm.
And so that means it's more than mothering, it's also caregiving on a full-time basis there as well. So there's we talked about this in our little get together, is that there's so many complexities to caregiving. Sometimes it's the physical caregiving. Sometimes it's just, oh, let's go clean the house. And that's a way of helping or house proofing, making sure that the homes are safe for
Mm.
olders. But also, there's a lot of mental health burden that we're having to support in both generations. I would say as we support our older generations, as they lose independence, I really see that across the customers of the company that I serve as well, is that depression that's associated with losing independence and having to accept care. And so that's really a mental health element that we often forget in the caregiving. And then also when you're a parent of a child that does suffer from mental illness, really it can have a huge toll, and you realize that you have to parent quite differently. So you may think, for example, if your child is doing something that is like a typical teenager would do, is that typical teenager behavior, or is that a symptom of the disease process?
Mm.
So I constantly have to scan that, the toolbox of consequences, really. I have to, is this a disease, or is this just shitty teenage behavior, right? So I'm having to regulate that often with my own child.
What a squeeze that you really are in, Jennifer, and you're working at the same time. You've got the international remote component for your aging parent. Um, how do I used to do like process flows for in my day job in IT, and I literally at one point like put a process flow together for like caregiving as like how do you discern where to put your attention at the moment when so many things are being called on you and demanded of you. um do you have a strategy for that? What has worked for you?
I love that you used your skills in your vocation to support that. Um, I can't say that I'm quite as process driven in my caregiving approach. Probably because there's so much being thrown at me that I'm a little bit underwater.
Mhm.
What I can say is that, aging is a team sport. If I think about caregiving for aging is a team sport. And so thinking about that, who's on your bench, who's on your team, who are you going to put on the field? I am really so blessed that I have a family of people who are super passionate and very skilled also in the world of caregiving, and specifically in the
Mhm.
world of medicine and public health, just like me as well. And so I would say that we've got a really great team assembled that does it, and everyone has a job. And so, like, one person might be doing the complete medical link and being the liaison of all things medical, and then informs the rest of us. The other person might be managing legal and finance. Um, because of the nature of my job, that I actually have the company that I've co-founded with my friend Miriam, um, we do a lot of support around the living component of caregiving, which is support of food or rides or um, home safety assessments and home
Mm.
modification and even tech support, which now that I'm deeply in it, I
Yeah.
realize what a role this is, because if every medical record is electronic and you're dealing with an aging parent who is losing their visual acuity, losing maybe even some of their executive function, having everything digitally and transportable is useful for the healthcare system, not useful for the person who's actually navigating it. So I'm really glad that our company actually does a lot of this to help people navigate through all their tech. So I think because of that world that I'm actually driving on a daily basis in our company, I'm utilizing the skills and tapping in the resources of the company to help me make decisions and execute the care for my loved ones. So yeah, so I think that, and I think otherwise it's just sort of like which is the loudest noise that needs to be tended to at the moment.
Yeah. That's
Show me your
real.
ways, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Show me your way.
Well, I mean, and like I was trying to figure it out too, kids in middle school and multiple parents needing different things, a mother-in-law and father at the same time. So it was hard. And I used to get really frustrated with the oxygen mask analogy and thinking like, there's nothing like falling from the sky that says like, hey, take care of yourself. And you've got this nest of hungry birds that analogy really resonated more with me, where there was all of these things that were trying to take a piece of you, and you are one person. So you have to trust that you can discern that you're putting your energy and your time in what, mental energy, physical energy into what you can, tackle at that moment. But it's, I think it's unrealistic to think that you can feed all the birds in a single day. So you kind of just hope that over a stretch of time that you can meet people's needs. And at the same time, like it was a wake up call for me. And I don't know if you're in that moment now where it's like, okay, if I don't go out and do some things to re-energize myself, I'm not going to keep able to leave this nest and come back and take care of all of the things in it.
Yeah. 100%. So I would say, I think in the middle of this, I mean, I'm acutely in the situation right now. So
Yes.
it's very timely. I got a back spasm during all this. And so I'm, moving things into assisted living or moving things to and from um, a skilled nursing facility. And so, for example, I'm using like a mobile office basically, that I like, just not sophisticated, like just
No.
a literally like a plastic box with envelopes, checks, um, computer, anything that we're going to need, the piles and piles of paperwork that we have to go through in order to admit or discharge or get this benefit or that benefit. Walking around with that, and just to say I have it here constantly so that I can always inform the rest of the family about what's happening and put those up, scan them, put those up on Google Docs, for example.
Mm,
But the process of just carrying that stuff around, carrying walkers and wheelchairs that I had never had to pick up physically so much, I strained my back. So
yeah.
it's like, oh, now brushing my teeth is painful. That's fun. Right.
But that's real. I mean,
So,
it's very common that a lot of
well,
caregivers injure themselves from doing the task of care. And I can relate totally to the wheelchair, putting it in. And I used to like look at these valet drivers. I used to use valet, would never, and I would like, I'm like, do you think you could help me with this? Like, lifting this humongous thing up, sometimes with a walker and a wheelchair and the notes and the tote bags and going into the doctor's
all the
office. You're like, you can't make this stuff up. Like, well, I hope that your back feels better, and that something is feeling comforting for that. And sometimes our body is going to be like, "Hey, take care of this." Um,
yeah,
what was that like?
exactly.
What was that like to kind of, come from international and have all the, this caregiving tasks on you? And you mentioned your dad and skilled nursing, and then picking an assisted living. Like, were you kind of
Yeah.
prepared and had a place in mind, or how did you make the decisions about where dad would be best?
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared at all, and I'm surprised that I wasn't prepared. And I think that maybe some of the listeners are caught in the same moment. And I feel maybe I felt in the past a little bit smug or maybe a little bit too smug.
Mm.
Because of the work that I do, I've been having conversations. We started the company, we launched it commercially last September, but we've been doing this for the last 3 years. So, for example, we'll get into what it is
Yeah.
later, but effectively like a tech company that provides physical services for older so they can live at home independently. That's just the tagline, trusted services. Because if you're going to have someone in your older's home, the most important thing is that we have ease, quality, but most importantly, that the ring that rules them all is trust.
Mm.
And I'm deeply feeling that right now. I don't want anyone to be caring for my dad or in my dad's home that I don't know hasn't been vetted. So we have a really complex vetting process. We've been doing all this. And with regards to the tech, we prided ourselves on really being design inclusive with olders and making it really easy and accessible for olders to use. So
Mm.
my dad has been one of our UI UX testers. He's been in focus groups. He's been there from the very beginning helping us co-design a lot of this tech, which makes it easier for olders themselves to tap into and use. And
Mm.
then, the adult children can support them with that. They get reports back on how their older's doing. So it's really a beautiful system of checks, balances from a safety perspective. Just the people that we work with are all vetted. And then when we always have eyes on all of our vendors when they're with the older themselves, and we can always give the feedback directly to the adult children once it's
Mm.
it's approved, when it's the they're signed off by the older themselves. But that's all to say that I've been doing this for a little while, a
Yeah,
little
like you were
minute.
deep in the weeds talking about it.
I'm deep in the weeds providing this resource for families that are like me. And I've been having those conversations with my own father. And, dad, what's going to happen when you can't drive? And because we provide rides for people who can't. And I'm constantly having conversations with our customers who will say, I don't know what I would do without your company. Viva Valet is the name of the company. I
Yeah.
don't know what I would do without you because I wouldn't have been able to get to my surgery because my children live far away from me or even an hour away from me. They can't get here to take me to my surgery or take me to my medical appointments, my physical therapy.
Mm.
Who was going to do that for me? I
They're an
didn't have anybody that
extension.
I could. Yeah. So I've been having these conversations, and maybe I just thought my dad would be super active and independent forever. And he was always like, I'm so glad you're doing, I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you that you're doing this. You're doing such great service for other families. Isn't it great? I don't need that. So, so there's that piece of it. So I think we all assumed maybe we had it under control and we didn't. And then when it comes to other documentation, which I'm sure that you're seeing as well with other people in this community, is that you think all the documents are pre-signed. You think that all the legal documents, all of them that could be needed, have been signed, that you've got your post or your DNR, you've got
Mm.
your emergency procedures that have to be followed, your your POA. You think you have all those documents clearly laid out, and maybe they were done 20 years ago. Maybe they've been done, and you're older, or the person you're caring for is like, yeah, it's done. Don't worry. I have that document, it's signed, etc. And then when you actually find the tissue paper, open up the box and discover it, it's out of date. It's from 20, 30 years ago.
Mm.
And now you're in the middle of an acute situation where you have emotions running really high and you have caregiving that you're actively doing, and you're having to have these really hard conversations when you could have had them in the nicer times, when you could talk about what does quality of life mean. If we're going to have chest compressions, if we're going to have intubation, what is that actually going to feel like for you at this
Mhm.
stage of your life? It forces really hard conversations that I didn't expect myself to have to have.
Right.
And so I think,
I mean, it sounds like you did the things though, Jennifer. Like you asked him,
I
like,
did the
do you have these things? You have these things. Like, I don't know what, in hindsight, can I see them? Should we check them? Like, I don't know. Like But living it and talking about it is also different.
Yeah, I think you discover, I think what you said is becomes a mess. It's a little like having a child, I think, is a similar circumstance when you're, maybe you dream of being pregnant, you dream of having a child, you have your pregnancy, it goes however it goes. You read every possible parenting book, and then until you actually have that child in your arms, you don't you think you know what you're doing. You think you've worked out parenting, you've knocked it out of the park, you know what you're expecting, and then that child is there and you realize, I know nothing. And I think that's the situation that I'm in right now, and many of us find ourselves in, is that we've prepared, we've had those bold conversations, we've assembled the team, thank God,
Mhm.
getting brothers, sister-in-laws, cousins, family, that you've assembled the team and you did the work and you did the things that you had to do to set it up. And then when you're actually playing the game, whoa, it's so much harder than you thought.
Yeah. I mean, that's very genuine and real, and um it's exhausting, frankly. Like, it's just an exhausting process, that all of the things that you think about and that you rely on. And when you were talking about, bringing kids into the world, I remember like being home with my new baby and taking like the newborn CPR class. And I literally was like, I don't know if I could save this person's life if I need to, so I took it again. Like, I was like, it took it, like I need to take it again, like just really nervous about being that primary person for somebody. Um, well, and you mentioned a lot of different documents. We'll link to some of those so that people can kind of do a check. And we've had some episodes about some of the things that to have. And I want to talk to Jennifer. Like, I mean, too bad that your Viva Valet business is not in the town that your dad lives in. I think that would have been amazing. But you have chosen Chicago. Why Chicago?
Yes. The
And
West
why? Tell a little bit
Chicago.
about Viva Valet in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a brilliant question. Why are you not? And in some instances, I can actually utilize some of the services that we have, which I'm really grateful for. But we launched in Chicago. We selected Chicago because my founder and I are both outside of the U.S. and we are both caregivers from a distance. And so we were uniquely trying to solve for our challenge, which is how do we provide all these trusted services for our aging relatives? And then I think we thought, if we find the most ideal spot, what are we looking for? We did census mining from the 2020 census,
Mm.
and we were looking for the highest concentration of olders 75 and above who were living at home independently, usually alone, so they're possibly widowed or divorced, and they don't have children living near them, so within like an hour radius away. So we were able to mine that data, and that was the highest constant. So West Chicago is the highest concentration of that demographic in the country. So we know that when we go to Florida, it's gonna just it's
Yeah.
gonna
I
be
mean,
like
it's just
wildfire.
interesting
Know
that
this.
it's Chicago.
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah. So
shoveling
we know
snow.
that it will,
Yeah.
like, yeah, exactly. So in the communities where we have high density of, let's say, snowbirds or people who've decided to get up and move, we know it's going to work. But really, the initial design principle was, we know that elders want to live at home. They want to stay in their home, maybe the home they've lived in, maybe their whole life or for the last 20 to 30 years. And so we wanted to provide a service for those people who want to stay where they are. 90% of those people don't want to move. And what we've discovered is that, indeed, these people do need these services and do want these services. So it was a wise choice to prove, does it work? Is it necessary? All those things. Absolutely. The thing that's harder than we expected is finding the adult children,
Yeah.
who often have flown the nest. So maybe those people have gone abroad, maybe they have moved to a coast, etc. And what's harder is linking them, because usually what we find is that when we talk to adult children who are caregivers like us, their eyes light up and say, I need this right now. Yes. And it's, oh, but I'm in New Jersey, or my mom's in Pennsylvania, or we're in Northern California, or we're in Oregon, for example.
Mm.
And so I think that's one of the challenges that we have. And I've actually also had customers in Chicago say, please get also to Florida because our parents are part-time in Florida. So let's
Yeah.
get
Or
there, right?
snowbirds. Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yes.
it's very, very common. A couple things that I want to, first of all, you use the term olders, which is kind of unique. Some people say, older adults or um, elders, or but elders is why, how, where did that come from?
Thank so thank you for picking it up. Olders is, completely by design. Um, we made a really cool decision at the very beginning of our company in that we invested in 2 months of ethnography. And what that
Mm.
means is we put cameras in the homes of olders and we did ethnographic research, ethnographic interviews to really understand what are the hopes, dreams, aspirations, fears of these people for living at home, for independent living.
Mhm.
And how might tech support them in that? And what are the barriers to that? So we really wanted to observe instead of having a focus group of is it A/B testing, because we knew we might miss something. So we were watching all of this. And that's really the ultimately the services that we put into our basket is what came from all of that. In the process of some of these ethnographic interviews, we became ourselves quite puzzled about how do we demonstrate our reverence for you as a customer, as a person who is older than us, who is in that age group. Are you, what would you like us to call you? Because we've heard like senior, like you
Senior,
say, or
yeah.
you know, elderly. We hear all these words, and they said we would really love it if you just call us older, because all the other biases associated and kind of baggage associated with all these other words aren't necessarily positive, but olders felt like it was reverent to them. And so that's what we call them.
I like it. I like it. And I think you're not
Yeah.
alone too. You mentioned like reaching the adult children or the family caregivers who are oftentimes making a lot of these business decisions. Uh, it's hard. It's hard because sometimes they're just, their sons and daughters are taking care of, they're just kind of doing it, and they may not necessarily identify with the role, or that's kind of like a frog in the water that starts to boil. Like they don't necessarily see that it's how much responsibilities they're taking on. I hope that that
Yeah.
changes. I think that, I would love to see our healthcare kind of really be instrumental in kind of naming that for people. Like the people are coming in likely with the olders. So,
Yeah.
hey, there's some resources for you and there's support for you. And I hope that that changes. We know there's a lot of us that are out there. Um,
Yeah. I think literacy in this journey is really vital. So health literacy, health care literacy, even sort of Medicare literacy. I see now that I'm immersed in it, and luckily I understand it, and my team that we're talking about, we all get it. I come from an entirely medical family. Everyone in my family has something to do with delivering care, organizing care, health policy. All of us are in it. And I don't, it's sort of like, an all-star team of people doing this. And we get lost. So I'm watching our own journey and I'm thinking, if we didn't understand how to interpret all these labs, for example, or didn't understand what has to happen at each of these care centers or care levels, or what we need to put in place, even though we might be
mm,
placing a relative in one level of care, we still need to order in extra services. If we didn't understand that, I worry for the older we're caring for,
right,
the safety of that person. And I think about again, this is Champions League we're talking about. This team is like a Champions League of caregivers.
right.
Those people who don't have that literacy, they really need help. And many of us, like you're saying, get thrust into this situation where one day you're just, hanging out with your older, your parent, etc. And the next day, oh, they have a terminal illness and you are now in charge of managing their medications, and they've been in the hospital for 2 weeks and now you have to take them home, and no one tells you what you're going to have to do. It's like, all of a sudden, congratulations, you have that baby in your arms. What are you going to do? And so what we've been trying to do is also come up with some, some coursework, some, checklists. Like if you look at our Instagram, we have Take Action Tuesday. We have these little
I
videos, which
love
are
your
a
take
minute.
action
With
Tuesdays. Yeah. So
Thank
good. They're so good. Yes,
you.
we'll link to the Instagram and all, we'll link to all the
Thank you.
things. Yeah.
So it's like, I know that we don't have a lot of time. All of us who are immersed in this are really time poor, attention poor. And so what we're trying to do is give you like the most a cute bite-sized thing that you can get in 60 seconds that you could say, this is something that will help you today, or you could plan this today, or here's a conversation to have today. Through this experience, there's a whole bunch of curriculum that we'll be releasing with that as well.
Good,
So,
good. We wanna hear
so
about
yeah,
that when and, hopefully, like,
yeah,
a platform like this where, like, that's part of my goal is trying to fast track people to resources and take some of the mystery out of it, and you may not need it right now, but you may have, like, heard it and be like, "Oh, I think I heard something about that." But you're so right, and for you to have an all-star team of caregivers and, our healthcare system is very fragmented, and there's a lot of nuances, and just because you have the knowledge too doesn't mean people are you're gonna have the money to pay for it. Like all of those things are so hard, but to know the questions to ask or to know when to push back and say, sorry, we're not equipped at home to take dad yet from, to know when to kind of what your rights are there and to push back to, I think
yeah.
is a lot.
So I think for those people who are watching and like, oh, well, I'm not a doctor or I don't have a degree in public health and how am I going to get through it? Like never be ashamed of advocating for your person, for your relative, for your older, and use your voice. And I
Hmm.
think that's the thing is even us who have these skills, we're having to use our voice and raise our voice and never be ashamed for saying, actually, this isn't normal. I'm observing this trend over the last 3 days of my parent, and this isn't normal. This behavior isn't normal, or this symptom isn't normal, or the way that this ankle is presenting with this new edema that I haven't seen before, that's not normal. Raise your voice, just like you would for your own personal health journey.
Right.
Raise your voice because if you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you.
Well, and they see so many different people. Like it's just like they don't might not remember what they told you already. And to your point, like you are the expert as the family member or the caregiver in your person. Like you know them better than this person knows them. So I think that's a great tip. I did do a little digging, I think, and I saw you have lived in Chicago before.
I have not lived in Chicago.
Oh, I thought
No.
Second City, was there a time where you worked there?
Second City, Toronto.
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 Okay, I have multiple second cities. And my daughter lives in Chicago and she's a
Ah,
nurse up there. So have been to that
easy.
version of it. Well, I love the improv comedy. So you've got that kind of in your past. I'm curious, does the improv and the comedy part of you, like, how does that infuse into your caregiving life?
Yeah, so improv is my past. It's also my present. In that, in fact, in Basel, I run a comedy school. I teach comedy to actors and even in corporate environments, and we also perform. So we do, we do shows, we ticket shows, um, all the jazz hands, all the show business. We do all that. With caregiving, for example, the running of my company, I teach many improv tools to my staff and to my service providers. So
Mm,
when our service providers go through the vetting process, they go onto our platform and they become eligible to serve our customers. They have to go through extensive training by us as a team. And I also teach them these tools and I ask them to use them because improv is the act of, let's say, creating something from nothing always. So we're always improvising, even if we don't think we're on a stage, we're always improvising. And in order to make this art, if I think about it as an art form, one has to be totally connected to the ensemble. So
mm.
an ensemble is different from a team, and that a team is like, Elizabeth, you do accounting and I'll do HR and Gary will do, I don't know, whatever. He'll make the
Operations.
coffee,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll make the coffee. Um, in an ensemble, you have to jump in and do whatever is required in the moment because you're creating the world. And so in order to do that, you have to trust each other and you have to really become in like a one common brain. It's
Mm.
like a kinetic yoga almost, where you're really super it's kinetic mindfulness. You're super connected with
Very
each other.
present.
So
You're
very
highly
hyper present.
present. Yeah.
So We do a lot of these exercises to get our people super present. So a lot of listening exercises, a lot of co-creation exercises, and yes, it adds a lot of levity and fun. So that if you laugh, like if you can laugh together, then you can create anything together, right? So we teach this to our team, our staff, our customer service, our providers who are delivering services, and I have even been able to teach improv to assisted living facilities. That's probably my favorite group of people I've
What's
ever
your
taught
like
improv
tip?
to.
Like, what's a good tip for that? Like what you might
So
might be
what's a good
used.
what's
Yeah, take like one improv thing that you might share with someone in assisted living or
Yeah. So what I would do, I mean, there's so many that I do. The thing that I love the most as a caregiver is something called headlines, and it's a listening exercise. And we do this a lot in corporate environments as well. But it would be you stand in a circle or sit in a circle in the case of with assisted living, um, and you make a statement, whatever statement you wish. And so let's play it. Let's demonstrate it. I'll say, weather in Oregon is sunny, and whatever. Anything you say is right. Just make it up.
yeah.
So the last word that I say would be the first word that you say. So weather in Oregon today is sunny.
Sunny skies really help my mood elevate.
Elevate is a direction I would like to go in an elevator tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I am hoping to have lunch with my girlfriends.
Girlfriends make the world go round. Isn't life great with girlfriends?
Girlfriends have been so critical to me. We have so much fun at our book club.
Cool. Okay, so end scene. So what we just did there is end scene. Exactly. That's how we do
Yeah.
it. Um, that is a way to when we're performing to help us really get in the moment, to be present with each other, to listen, because if you miss something, then you are maybe creating the wrong thing, because you're all co-creating at the same time, so you have to be hyper present. So where we use this in caregiving is it's a great way to demonstrate that I've listened to you. I can As humans, we're kind of garbage at listening. Very often it's we're talking and taking turns talking instead of listening to understand and to absorb. So with this exercise, you can't plan what you're going to say until the last word comes. So you have to listen to every word. What we really like with this as a caregiver is to really absorb what's going on, slowing it down. And then when you use that last word, when you start to talk, it's about really building rapport. And it's like hospitality of the mind, where you demonstrate, I listen to you and this is the evidence.
Mm.
So I've seen this work really well with caregivers. I'm using it every day in this caregiving team. Absolutely. So that's been a great one, I think, as a caregiver, and the beneficiary of that is the carry. There are other things that we do, like, yes but versus yes and. If you think about the prime rules of improv is yes and. So you say yes to what's being offered you and you keep building. And so very often in environments and meetings, you'll hear people say, yes, that works. It sounds interesting, but,
There's
right?
the big butt.
Oh, Gary,
Yeah.
the big butt, and a butt is for sitting on, it's not for your mouth, right? So what we often say is that when you say yes, but, it blocks the energy, it blocks the creativity, it kills the mood, right? Kills the
Mhm.
vibe.
And it negates
What we're
really
always
what was said. Yeah.
100%. So yes, so it's yes and keep building. So we even just do that as a simple thing as we tell a story. Someone will say, tell a little story around the circle, and we'll say yes, but, and we have them keep telling the story, and then it gets clunky and it doesn't really work,
Mm.
and then we have them find the direction and go a different direction, say that, tell a story together, and every time each person starts, they'll say yes and we see how that changes. So even just putting that in the microcosm of caregiving, it shows what's possible, and it keeps elevating the mood, because everyone
Mhm.
needs to have their mood elevated a little bit and a lot, right?
It's a great
So
coaching
I love it.
tool, frankly, too, Jennifer. Like as a certified caregiving consultant, when I coach, I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I do some of it. And that it's validating. It validates their journey, their experience, their feelings, all of that. And yet you want to help them move forward to a little bit or kind of dive a little deeper. And so that gives you the opportunity to, yes. And so I like that. It's super relevant in a lot of ways. So I want to ask you too, like you're in a acute caregiving situation. Like what is keeping you afloat right now?
Me as an individual,
Yes, you as a person who I'm hoping is prioritizing health and happiness in little ways and staying energized because so much is being and I know you like are your kids with you or are they back at home or
my kids were with me and now they're back home.
okay.
So, um, um,
Are there little
I
micro
think,
things in your day that are just kind of working?
yeah. So I'm really fortunate that you see this beautiful place that I'm in. We're in the middle of nature. The downside is there's no mobile reception, which is probably a upside actually,
Mm,
but I'm immersed in nature, so I'm able to have, my coffee sitting here on the lake and listening to the birds and watching the hummingbirds. So I take that kind of moment of zen to really get present. I have also prepared what I like about my team that I have is all of us have a lot going on that would either enable or prevent us from being physically present. So we're taking turns being physically present, and then so it's like intensively here and then off. So pre-scheduling things that are really important. Pre-scheduling some self-care in the form of massage,
mm.
pre-scheduling self-care in the form of some intensive meditation. Like I'm actually going to take a break and I'm going to go do some meditation, then I'm going to come back. So knowing that, I think this is also part of like foreseeing that it's going to be hard and knowing that once you're in it, it's like this idea of, oh, take a break. It's kind of like, please listen to my
Yeah.
finger because I'm, like the moment you hit the ground in any of these care facilities, you are on. Like you are talking to nurses, you're talking to case managers, you are planning this, planning that. There's not a free moment. So for me, it's better to say I'm going to be immersed in this stuff and I'm going to pre-schedule a break that will be maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 3 days, and then I come back. That's helping me. I don't
And
know if
just
I
knowing
maybe
that
you have
it's
better.
coming. Sometimes I think just
Yeah.
knowing that it's out there. I mean, I would schedule things, when I was deep in it, Wednesday, Friday mornings were kind of my recharge mornings where I would write and I would exercise and didn't necessarily have to cart kids to and fro. So that was knowing that that was kind of coming, I think is some of the anticipation of it and plan and then honoring it. Sometimes it can be really easy to scrap it though when it comes up. Um, how are you at that? Like, are you good? Are you good at keeping these appointments for yourself?
I am good at keeping those appointments and also to say like the next 3 hours I'm not going to be available.
Yeah,
Or this morning, because I was in the ER with you until 1 o'clock in the morning, I won't be visible until noon tomorrow, for example. Those kinds of things. I really paying it forward and blocking that time so that I can get a little bit of rejuvenation on either sleep
I love
or
it.
whatever. Yeah.
But
I
how do
think
you
the
do
one
how do
thing
you
that
do it without
hurts,
feeling guilty? Because some people are like, oh, the guilt is just they just think they can power through and they're just going to power through and it's going to all kind of work out. Like it did something bite you or did you have to learn something or is this something that somebody modeled for you?
um, I mean, is there guilt? Sure. There are
That's
moments,
real.
and I've said, should I take this break? Maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. And the members of my team will say, you are taking this break. And I'm really grateful that the members of my team are um, also reminding me to do that and giving me grace and giving me the pass to say, like, if you don't take a break, if you don't sleep tonight,
Mm.
you're going to crash. So we need you. So it's actually amazing. Like the power of whoever you assemble to be on your team. Again, my family, I'm so grateful. But for them to say, we need you to be there fully present and doing this job. And if you don't take care of yourself, then it doesn't happen. So take that sleep, take that break, take that day or 2 or 3 or whatever to
Yeah.
get through what you need to do, and then we get other people to come in and fill in during those
Yeah.
times.
So good. I mean, you have a team for your dad in this situation, but then you have a team for you too. And I think that most successful caregiving situations that I have encountered have that. They have that dual team. Like, yes, we're doing this, but we're also kind of making sure that we're looking out for each other. So fabulous there. I've got to ask you a couple questions from the Just for You Daily Self-Care Journal. It's a prompted self-care journal that I wrote to help people prioritize their health and happiness. Um, let's let's ask you this. How many hours of sleep do you average? Is that something you prioritize, sleep?
I do. I wear an Aura ring. I
Same, I just got mine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we were chatting about that. That's true. We were DMing about it. I remember now. Um, I really do check it, and I do monitor the amount and I monitor the quality.
I love
I
the
will say that
optimal. I just feel so good if it says like, well, good is good, but optimal, amazing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly, and like HRV and um I think in these moments of stress, I see how it impacts the quality of my sleep. And also what I was thinking of in the back of my head when I was talking about self-care is like in the middle of a crisis, food gets really horrible because you're running from two places to, maybe you're eating the hospital food or maybe you're eating fast food when you're used to eating maybe more whole grain, whole food, self-cooked kind of things, which I am, and now I'm immersed in like, okay, which fast food places am I going to go grab from? And that, so so I feel gross, but I
Yeah.
feel that that impacts sleep. So I see that my HRV is reduced
Interesting.
as a result
Well, and
as a
alcohol,
result
I
of that.
know I've noticed the nights I drink or I eat a meal late, that definitely has an impact on that. So yeah, it's like making decisions with data, I think is really interesting.
Mhm.
Took a minute to get used to this. I literally just got mine from my kids for a birthday present, although I get to pick up the subscription, the monthly subscriptions on me.
Amazing.
But it was super sweet of them to think. But I really have been learning a lot about that. Um, Next question is, what have you done that lately, or something that makes you proud of yourself? You know, I think sometimes we can beat ourselves up about not doing enough and being enough. Like, what's something you're just proud of? Could be a small thing.
Um, Even in the middle of these hard moments, I did some really special things with my daughter. And even though it's hard, challenging, sad, what we have to do right now, I gave her magical moments. So, I took her to Taylor Swift before we came.
We did that with
So we
my
went to the
daughter
air.
and her friends. I love that. I was just talking to somebody about that, how those memories have really stuck with me, and it's been well over a year. Yes, that's amazing. Did you see
Yeah.
them? Where did
So
you
we
see
just
Taylor
went
Swift?
in Zurich, in Zurich. So before, yeah, so we literally went, and then the next within 6 hours of the concert finishing, we were on a plane flying here.
Wow.
And I think, there are moments in time when you have to do that flex for your kid that's like, oh, it's challenging because it's physically challenging to go to something like that. And you, you know, then there's you dress and you coordinate your outfits, and we kind of
Yeah.
did a matchy thing, and it was really cute. And the expense, although I got them face value, so I didn't have to go through this, major scalper, but I'm really proud that I had that experience for her.
Mhm.
I'm really, really proud that I did that. I think that, and the other thing I'm very proud of is I'm a little bit obsessed with seeing the Northern Lights. So my two goals this year, like private goals, were see the Northern Lights and see Taylor Swift. So Taylor Swift, check. And then we've been having these incredible phenomenon lately where we have so many solar storms that are happening. And like in May, for example, many people
Mhm.
saw them. And I was thinking, do I go to Northern Norway this year? Or do I go to Iceland? And just 5 days ago, we had a solar storm, and I have these apps that measure it, and I actually got up and I saw them here.
Here
I
in
saw them.
Oregon. Yeah, they've been in
I saw,
Michigan. My sister lives in Michigan. Like sometimes people will text and will like run out and see if I'm up there. to see them. But yes, it's been an amazing, like you said, the past couple years, like there's lots of opportunities, even in the US. Yeah.
Been in the US, so I saw them on Saturday night, and it was like a dream come true. It was just
Mm,
ethereal and beautiful, and I'd seen them once before in Alaska when I was actually attending my best friend's father's funeral, and the Alaskans told me that the Inuits believe that the northern lights are the flames that are the torches the angels are carrying as they escort the dead to heaven.
beautiful.
So I was like,
Beautiful.
wow, the majesticness of the lights. It was just spectacular.
Yeah. Mother Nature is spectacular for sure. Well, I hate that we've got to wrap this up, Jennifer. I've enjoyed our conversation. Is there one, something that you wish that we would have talked about that we haven't? And then how do people find out about connect with you and connect with Viva Ballet?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the one nugget that I really keep coming back to in caregiving is let them lead you. So we're often confronted with challenging diagnoses or challenging circumstances. And I think, even if you've got an awesome team, which we do, it's still asking the person that you're caring for, what what do you need? What do you need from me? How do I best support you? And I think that is relevant in every person's caregiving journey across all the whole life cycle is before I jump with all my solutions and all my actions, what is the thing that you would like me to do for you, and how would you like me to support you? How would you like me to talk about this with you? And then they'll give you the script, and then you follow that to the T. And I think that's really relevant for me in all the caregiving and or supporting situations I'm in across my life, across friends or family, etc.
Mm.
It's helpful.
I'm curious what your
And then
dad is saying now. That what does he need from you now? How is what is he answering, so that you can feel like when you're thinking like, oh, I'm not doing enough, like,
my dad, how do you want me to help you? And how do you want me to talk to you? And it just turns out to be that, in the world of pharma, um, I've worked in this disease area that he's experiencing.
that's good.
And I've developed the drug that he's about to get. I've
Mm,
launched the drug so much so that um, we have created an access scheme, the first access scheme globally where a payer would only pay for the drug if it worked. And it was for this drug he's about to be on. And it worked so well. So little nuggets like this, he wants to hear everything. So some people will say, I don't want to know the risk, or I don't want to um, just just help me feel comfortable. He's like, use your brains, like to everyone on the team and the family, use your brain to the top of your intelligence and the top of your ability. Share it with me, teach me, educate me, and advocate for me in the system. That's what he's asking for.
yeah,
And we
amazing.
are.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And how do people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, so Viva Valet, it's www.vivavalet.com is our website. If you're in Illinois, we are so happy to serve you. We could also do rides for you pretty much anywhere. So we're starting that process now to roll that out, which we'll be tapping into in Oregon. I'm very really excited. Um, I did a TED Talk on Yes and, so maybe we put that in the show notes
Yes,
if
I
you
will
want to
add
see
that.
that.
I definitely add that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at Viva Valet official on Instagram if you want to tap into our Take Action Tuesdays or any of the other resources that we put out. We also have a LinkedIn page. We also have a community page with Facebook as well. So that's where you can find us. And thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you for, I
I'm
know that
so
you've carved out this time, and especially when you're in an acute caregiving situation. Hopefully has made you feel a little bit lighter, maybe even like just kind of talking about it and having this space for it. But you're doing all of the things, and I hope that the situation turns out as best as it possibly can for you and your dad.
Thank you. Thank you. Great talking to you, Elizabeth. Thank you.